My wife created an OnlyFans 2 weeks after filing for divorce and made over $10,000 in a month. What would you do if the woman you married, the person you thought you knew better than anyone else, filed for divorce out of nowhere, and just 2 weeks later, she was posing in lingerie on the internet, pulling in more money in 1 month than you've ever seen in your bank account? Yeah, that happened to me. 5 years of marriage, a home together, holiday dinners, shared dreams, all the cliches. And then suddenly, boom, divorce papers. No major fight, no cheating, as far as I knew. Just, I need to find myself. Okay, fine. It hurt, but I respected it. Sometimes people grow apart, right? But then came the kicker. Exactly 15 days after she walked out that door, my buddy sends me a text. Just a link. No words. I click on it. And I swear to you, I nearly dropped my phone. There she was, my ex-wife, on OnlyFans, in lingerie, posing, smiling, charging $19.99 a month for exclusive content. And judging by the like count and subscriber total, she was killing it. Over $10,000 in the first month. Now, look, I'm not some ultra-conservative guy. I get it. It's 2025, and people make money online however they can. But this wasn't just some random girl on the internet. This was my wife. Or, she had been, less than 3 weeks ago. The woman who used to get embarrassed kissing in public was now selling premium nudes to strangers online. The same woman who once told me she didn't like showing too much skin at the beach. That same woman now had over 2,000 followers, and her numbers were growing fast. I kept asking myself, how long had she been planning this? Did she start while we were still married? Was I just a placeholder husband until she was ready to launch her new life? Or worse, was our entire marriage just a mask? You ever get that kind of punch to the gut where your whole reality shifts? Like suddenly you start rewinding every conversation, every glance, every quiet dinner, wondering if there were signs you missed? I spent nights just sitting there, scrolling through her page. Yes, I subscribed. Judge me all you want, trying to make sense of it all. Not out of jealousy, not even lust. Just confusion. Obsession, maybe. Trying to piece together the puzzle. And the weirdest part? A small part of me was proud of her. She looked confident. She looked happy. And that only made it worse. I didn't see this coming. Not even close. But it's real. It happened. And I want to tell you the full story. Not just because it's insane, but because I think it says something deeper about where we are as a culture, about relationships, and about the thin line between personal freedom and betrayal. So here's what happened, from beginning to end. How we met, how we broke, and how she became an online sensation in less than 30 days. Stick with me, because if you think the OnlyFans part is wild, wait until you hear what she told me the day we ran into each other again. We met during our junior year of college in San Diego. It wasn't some rom-com moment with sparks flying and background music. It was quiet, almost forgettable. She was sitting under a tree near the library, legs crossed, headphones in, reading some thick book on trauma psychology. I was walking by with a coffee in one hand and a half-finished graphic design project in the other. She barely noticed me, but I noticed her. There was something about the way she seemed so comfortable alone. Like the world didn't need to entertain her. She was content just being still. That confidence, the kind that doesn't scream for attention, hit me like a wave. I'd dated before, casually, but something told me she was different. A week later, I saw her again at a mutual friend's party. We started talking about music, then moved on to childhood memories, favorite books, dreams, fears. The kind of conversation that makes 3 hours feel like 15 minutes. She told me she wanted to become a therapist, help people unpack the things they were too afraid to say out loud. I told her I wanted to design things that made people feel something. We were young, idealistic, and a little naive. But it felt real. We started dating soon after that. It wasn't a whirlwind. It was more like building something with care. Every date, every late-night phone call, every quiet morning felt like another brick. We took road trips up the coast, got drunk on cheap wine in tiny Airbnbs, cried together when her dog passed away. There was depth, not just attraction. She was thoughtful. She remembered the smallest things, like how I hated cilantro or how I got nervous in large groups. She'd leave little notes in my backpack before class. On my birthday, she hand-drew a card with inside jokes only the two of us would understand. She made me feel seen. And I think, for a while, I did the same for her. After college, We moved in together in a one-bedroom apartment just outside Temecula. Rent was tight, but we made it work. I freelanced. She worked at a youth counseling center. We ate frozen pizza, binge-watched The Office, argued about dishes, and made up the next morning like it never happened. We were building a life, brick by brick. We got married after 3 years of dating. The ceremony was small, 25 people in my aunt's backyard. She wore a simple lace dress. I wore a navy suit I bought on sale. We didn't care about flashy things. We cared about each other. During our vows, she said, "You make the world feel safe." I didn't cry then, but later that night, when we were alone, I did. The first year of marriage was good. Not perfect, but good. We cooked together, took Sunday walks with our rescue dog, Milo, planned our finances, talked about maybe having kids in a few years. She loved lighting candles and playing soft jazz while we ate dinner. I loved how she laughed when Milo stole food off the counter. We were just comfortable. Looking back, maybe that was the beginning of the end. Comfort can be beautiful, but for some people, it becomes a cage. She started getting restless around year 2. Subtle things. Spending more time on her phone, following influencers who talked about freedom and feminine energy, and living unapologetically. She started journaling a lot, reading books with titles like Untamed and The Wisdom of Insecurity. I was happy she was exploring herself. I thought maybe it was just a phase. Everyone goes through changes, right? She joined a gym, got really into fitness, started eating clean, tracking macros, sharing meal preps on Instagram. I supported her. I was proud of her. But as her body transformed, something else did too. She grew more confident, but also more distant. There were fewer jokes between us, fewer cuddles on the couch, more nights where she'd fall asleep with her back turned to me. We still had good days. We'd go out for sushi and talk about work. We'd cuddle on the weekends and binge documentaries. But something unspoken was growing between us. I didn't know what it was. And maybe, deep down, I didn't want to ask. Because when love starts quietly slipping through your fingers, you convince yourself you're just imagining it. That tomorrow will be better. That this is just a rough patch. But love, real love, it doesn't just vanish overnight. Except one day it kind of did. It didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic fight, no scandalous secret revealed. Just a slow, almost invisible drift. Year 2 of our marriage started out like any other. We had routines. I'd make coffee in the morning while she got ready for work. We kissed goodbye at the door. We texted each other memes and "how's your day going?" messages. It was normal, familiar, safe. But comfort has a way of turning into complacency if you're not paying attention. And I wasn't paying attention, not the way I should have been. It started with the little things. She'd come home from work and head straight to the bedroom to unwind. But that unwinding started taking longer and longer. Dinner used to be our time to reconnect. Now it was eaten on the couch while she scrolled on her phone. When I asked how her day was, the answers became shorter. Fine. Exhausting. Same as always. And then silence. At first, I thought it was just burnout. Her job at the counseling center could be emotionally draining. I told her to take some time off if she needed it. She smiled and said she was okay. But something in her eyes said otherwise. She started following all these lifestyle accounts on Instagram. Women who posted glossy photos of themselves in bikinis holding protein shakes, writing captions about taking up space and reclaiming your narrative. At dinner, she'd bring up things she'd read online. Did you know women are biologically wired to suppress themselves in relationships? Or do you ever wonder if monogamy is natural? I laughed at first. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. I told myself not to overthink it. People change. They grow. I wanted to believe she was just trying to better herself. Maybe we both were. I started going to the gym with her. Tried eating cleaner. Supported her when she said she wanted to cut back on work and explore more creative freedom. I thought maybe that meant photography or writing or something artistic. She smiled a lot more when she was online. She'd spend hours editing photos, choosing the right filters, writing long captions about healing your inner child and unlearning patriarchal programming. Her follower count started going up. I was proud of her at first. I thought, good for her. She's finding her voice. But as she grew louder online, she grew quieter with me. Intimacy changed. She stopped reaching for my hand in bed. Our kisses turned into quick pecks. Sex became less frequent, and when it did happen, it felt different. Like she wasn't really there. Like she was acting out of obligation, not desire. One night, after we'd been out to dinner with friends, she said something that stuck with me. I feel like I'm performing all the time. Smiling, nodding, pretending to be this version of me that fits into everyone's expectations. I just want to be real. I didn't know what to say. I told her I loved her, that she could always be herself with me. She nodded, but her eyes looked past me. Another time, I found her crying alone in the bathroom. I knocked gently. Hey, what's going on? She wiped her face quickly and said, I don't know. I just feel stuck. That word hit me like a brick. Stuck. In our marriage? In life? In her own head? I asked if she wanted to see a therapist, talk to someone. She said maybe, but she never followed through. We started spending more time apart without even trying to. She took solo weekend trips to Joshua Tree to recharge. She went out with new friends from the gym, some of whom I'd never met. I stayed home, telling myself she needed space. That giving her freedom was a form of love. But that freedom started to feel like abandonment. Then there was the night I walked past her laptop while she was in the shower. I wasn't trying to snoop. The screen was open, and a tab caught my eye. How much can you make on OnlyFans? I froze. I didn't even know how to react. I waited for her to come back and casually asked, Hey, random question. Why were you looking at OnlyFans stuff? She paused, just for a second. Then she laughed. Oh my God, really? I saw a TikTok about it. I was curious. Chill. It's not like I'm starting an account. I laughed too, but it felt forced. My stomach turned. Something felt off, but I didn't push it. I didn't want to seem insecure or controlling. I told myself it was probably nothing. Looking back, maybe that was the moment I lost her, and I didn't even know it. It's strange how hindsight works. When you're in the middle of the drift, it just feels like life. People get busy. Moods change. You assume things will go back to normal. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes that distance becomes the new normal. And before you realize it, you're living with someone who feels more like a stranger than a spouse. That was us, sharing a house, a bed, a life, but not really sharing ourselves anymore. And I didn't know it then, but something much bigger was coming. Something I never could have seen coming, even if the signs were right in front of me all along. It was a Friday evening. I had just gotten home from work, late, as usual. She was already there, sitting on the couch, legs crossed, her phone face down beside her. The TV was on but muted. That in itself felt strange. She never left the TV on without watching it. Hey, I said, hanging my jacket. Everything okay? She looked at me, but not in the way a wife looks at a husband after a long day. There was something final in her eyes. Cold, maybe. Or just decided. Can we talk? She asked. If you've ever had someone say those 3 words to you with a tone that flat, you know the weight they carry. You know the storm that's about to come. But still, I sat down, hoping it was something we could fix. She didn't drag it out. I filed for divorce. Just like that. No tears. No rage. No build-up. Like she was reading a headline aloud. I blinked, processing the words. Wait, what? She inhaled slowly. I filed the papers yesterday. I remember my first instinct wasn't to get angry. It was disbelief. Like she had just said something in another language. I thought she was joking. Testing me. Looking for a reaction. You're serious? I asked. She nodded. I've been thinking about this for a long time. I can't do this anymore. Do what? Be married? Live with me? Share a life? We can fix this, I said. Whatever's wrong, we can talk it through. We always do. She shook her head, gently. It's not something you can fix. It's me. I need space. I need to figure out who I am outside of this. That word again. Space. The same word she used when she started sleeping facing away from me. The same word she used when she went to Joshua Tree alone. The same word I'd heard 100 times before, but never really understood. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. But I did ask, is there someone else? No, she said quickly. Too quickly. This isn't about another person. I wanted to believe her. Desperately. But something inside me flinched. Something said, she's not telling you everything. The rest of the conversation blurred. She said she'd stay at her sister's for a while. That she'd come by next week to pick up more of her things. That she hoped we could end things peacefully. End things peacefully. Like this was a job resignation. Like we hadn't shared a bed, a bank account, a dog, 1,000 quiet mornings and whispered dreams. She stood up, grabbed her bag, and walked out the door. She didn't look back. I sat there for a long time. Maybe an hour. Maybe 5. I don't remember. Milo, our dog, climbed onto the couch, and rested his head in my lap. I pet him in silence, staring at the door, waiting for it to open again. It never did. The next day, I found her wedding ring on the kitchen counter, just lying there, next to the salt shaker, like it had never mattered. Over the next few days, I went into autopilot. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. I told a few close friends. My parents. Everyone said the same things. You'll be okay. She's just lost. You deserve better. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were just trying to make me feel better. But I wasn't angry yet. Not truly. I was confused, hurt, lost. And somewhere deep down, I still thought, maybe this was a mistake. Maybe she'd change her mind. Maybe she just needed time. Because when someone you love walks away without a fight, it's hard to accept. You tell yourself it's temporary, that they'll remember the good, that they'll come back. But she didn't come back. A week later, she returned to pack more things. She was polite, distant, efficient. She folded her clothes carefully, boxed up her books, and made polite small talk like we were acquaintances. Like 5 years meant nothing. At one point, I asked her, "Are you really sure this is what you want?" She paused, then looked me in the eye. I've never been more sure of anything. That was the moment I realized I had lost her. Not to another man, not to a mistake I'd made, but to something deeper. A version of herself I never got to meet. A version she had been building quietly in the dark, while I thought we were just going through a rough patch. She left that day with 3 boxes and a suitcase. I watched her car pull out of the driveway, down the street, and out of my life. And still, I had no idea what was coming next. Because while I was grieving the end of our marriage, she was already building something new. Something bold. Something unapologetic. Something I'd discover in the most shocking way imaginable. 2 weeks. That's how long it took. 14 days after she walked out of our home and filed for divorce, I found out who she had become. It was a Thursday night. I was sitting in my living room, watching old episodes of Seinfeld I'd seen a dozen times before. Not because I cared what happened, just to fill the silence. That's what my life had become. Static. White noise. I hadn't seen her since she came to pack her things. And then I got a text. It was from Jake, one of my closest friends. Just a link and 2 words. Dude, what? I stared at it for a second. My stomach tightened. I had no idea what I was about to click on, but something in me knew it wasn't good. I tapped the link. It opened to an OnlyFans page. Username @RebirthRiley. The profile picture hit me like a punch in the gut. Her, my ex-wife, wearing red lingerie, looking straight into the camera with a half smile. Confident, sensual, unapologetic. Her hair was down, slightly tousled, makeup perfect. She looked powerful. I froze. For a moment, I honestly thought it was fake. Maybe someone stole her photos. Maybe it was a lookalike. Maybe it was some cruel prank. But it wasn't. I knew her face. I knew that tattoo on her collarbone. I knew the way her left eyebrow arched when she smirked. I scrolled. There were dozens of photos, some tasteful, some full-on explicit. Videos, too. Everything behind a paywall. She was charging $19.99 a month for a subscription, plus additional custom content. Some posts had hundreds of likes. Comments from strangers calling her goddess, queen, wife material. I sat there numb, confused, shocked. A part of me wanted to throw my phone. Another part just stared. This wasn't just a side hustle. It was a whole identity. The captions were personal, almost poetic. I spent too long living for others. This space is mine. Freedom looks like lace and red lipstick. To the girl I buried to become someone's wife, this is your resurrection. That last one hit hard. Someone's wife. That someone was me. I should have exited, closed the app, walked away, but I didn't. I subscribed. I know how that sounds. But I needed to know more. I needed to understand what the hell had happened. Inside the paywall, it was even more surreal. Her tone changed completely from the woman I used to live with. She was flirty, confident, teasing. She talked to the camera like she was in control, like she owned the attention. There was a pinned post thanking her first 500 subscribers and hinting at something special coming at 1,000. I did the math. At $19.99 a month, with over 500 subs, she had already made at least $10,000. Not including tips, private requests, or custom content. My wife, sorry, ex-wife, had built a mini empire in under a month. But the most haunting part? She had probably been planning this the whole time. I thought back to that Google search I caught on her laptop. How much can you make on OnlyFans? I had brushed it off. She told me it was just curiosity. A joke. But now it was clear she had been researching, preparing, mentally moving on long before the divorce was filed. And while I was sitting in our home, grieving, blaming myself, wondering what I could have done differently, she was out there, posing, posting, becoming a completely different person. My emotions were all over the place. Rage, betrayal, heartbreak, jealousy, and, shamefully, curiosity. This version of her was magnetic, not because of the lingerie or the body shots, but because of the confidence, the control. She wasn't hiding anymore, and that scared me more than anything, because it meant I had never really known her. I wondered, had she felt trapped with me? Had she seen our marriage as a cage? Did she look in the mirror every day, playing the role of wife, while secretly dreaming of this? Or had something snapped after the divorce? Was this her way of taking power back? I spent hours just staring, clicking, reading captions, watching her transform in real time. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I started to grieve a second time. The first time, I mourned the end of our relationship. This time, I mourned the idea that the woman I loved might have never existed. Or maybe, the version of her I loved, the sweet, quiet, introverted girl reading books under trees, had simply evolved into something else. Something louder, bolder, sexier. And she didn't need me anymore. I didn't talk to anyone about it for days. I didn't respond to Jake's follow-up texts. What was I supposed to say? Yeah, that's her. Yeah, she's doing great. Yeah, I subscribed. I deleted the app off my phone. But not before taking one last screenshot. Her page, her bio, her follower count. I needed to remind myself it was real. Because otherwise, I might have convinced myself I dreamed it. And the thing that haunted me most? She wasn't hiding. She wasn't ashamed. She was proud. She had found something that made her feel alive. And while I sat at home, trying to figure out who she used to be, she was out there, unapologetically becoming who she always wanted to be. After I found her OnlyFans, I couldn't stop replaying everything. Every memory, every moment, every conversation. It was like my mind hit rewind and started scanning frame by frame, searching for clues I'd missed, anything that could have warned me, anything that would make it make sense. Because it had to be there, right? People don't just change overnight. She didn't go from, I'm lost, to lingerie influencer in 2 weeks. No, this had been brewing. Quietly, privately. And the most painful part was realizing she had been preparing for this while she was still with me. I started with the obvious moments. That time I caught her searching, how much can you make on OnlyFans? That day she casually mentioned a podcast episode about owning your sensuality. The shift in her Instagram feed, from sunset photos and food pics to close-up selfies and sports bras with hashtags like hashtag goddess energy and hashtag soft girl season. I'd seen all of it. I just didn't see it. I thought she was experimenting, empowering herself, exploring self-love. And maybe she was. But at some point, that empowerment stopped being about growth with me and became about becoming someone else. I asked myself again and again, was I holding her back? I thought I'd been supportive. I encouraged her to work out, to take creative space, to travel solo when she needed it. I didn't nag her when she went out more often or when she started spending extra hours on her phone. I trusted her, but maybe I was too trusting. Maybe I ignored the growing distance because I was afraid to confront the truth. Maybe I didn't want to know who she was becoming. It's weird how grief works. You mourn someone like they died, but really, they just changed. It was like she had molted, shed her skin, and the person underneath didn't need me anymore. I went back through her old Instagram captions. They read differently now, learning to be my most authentic self, not shrinking to fit into anyone's version of who I should be, reclaiming my body, my voice, my space. At the time, I liked those posts. I even commented on a few, said things like, proud of you, and you're amazing. Meanwhile, she was laying the foundation for a version of her life I didn't belong in. And what hurt the most wasn't the platform. It wasn't the photos. It wasn't even the money. It was that she didn't tell me. She didn't say, hey, I'm thinking about doing something bold. She didn't sit me down and explain why she felt invisible, why she needed more, why this version of herself was screaming to be let out. She just left, and then reappeared online, half-naked, fully alive, and completely unrecognizable. People kept telling me, it's not about you. It's her journey. Maybe that's true. But when your wife starts a whole new life 2 weeks after ending yours, it's impossible not to take it personally. And I'll be honest, there was anger. So much anger. Not at her body, not at her posing, not even at the success, but at the deception. We were supposed to be partners. If she felt trapped, why didn't she tell me? If she wanted to explore this part of herself, couldn't we have had that conversation? Maybe the answer was no. Maybe she didn't think I could handle it. Maybe she was right. Because as much as I wanted to believe I was progressive and open-minded, a part of me couldn't shake the betrayal. A part of me still saw the woman I made coffee for every morning. The woman I held during panic attacks. The woman who once said I made her feel safe. Now that same woman was selling access to her body, her time, her smile, for a price. And strangers were paying. I kept thinking, was I the last to know who she really was? Or was I just the last person she wanted to know? And the worst part? The idea that maybe I never really knew her at all. I didn't expect to see her again. After the OnlyFans discovery, I deleted the app, blocked her social media, and threw myself into work. I needed distance. From her, from the past, from the version of myself that kept checking her subscriber count at 2 a.m. But of course, life doesn't always let you hide. It was about 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized. I was at a Trader Joe's on a Sunday afternoon, doing my weekly grocery run. I turned down the frozen foods aisle, half distracted by my phone, when I heard a familiar voice laugh. I looked up. There she was. She looked incredible. Different. Not in a superficial way. She had always been beautiful, but this was something else. A quiet confidence. Strong posture. Bold red lipstick. Something she never wore when we were together. Tight jeans, crop top, hair pulled back. She didn't look like the woman I married. She looked like the woman from the OnlyFans profile. She saw me. Her smile faltered for half a second, but then she recovered and said, "Hey." I stood there like a deer in headlights. "Hey," I finally managed to say. It was awkward for a second. Then she gestured toward my cart and said, "Still doing frozen orange chicken, huh?" I half laughed. Some habits die hard. She stepped closer, but not too close. "You look good," she said. "Healthier." "I've been trying," I said. "You look different." She smiled. "I feel different." We stood there in the middle of the aisle, surrounded by bags of peas and sweet potato gnocchi, pretending like this was normal. Like we were two old friends catching up. But under the surface, the tension was undeniable. "So," I started. "I saw the page." She didn't flinch. "I figured," she said. "A lot of people from my past have." "You're not hiding it," I said. It came out a little sharper than I intended. She met my eyes. "Why would I?" "I'm not ashamed." I nodded slowly. "You planned this before the divorce, didn't you?" There was a pause. A long one. "I thought about it," she admitted. "For months. But I didn't actually start until after. I needed to be out first." "Why didn't you just talk to me about it?" I asked. She hesitated again, but then answered honestly. "Because I didn't think you'd understand. I was already disappearing in that marriage. And if I told you, I was afraid it would only make me feel smaller." That hurt. But I respected her honesty. I looked at her for a long moment. This wasn't the woman who used to cry on my shoulder when work overwhelmed her. This wasn't the girl who left me sticky notes that said, "I love your stupid jokes," on the bathroom mirror. This was someone else entirely. Someone reborn. "Are you happy?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "Yes. For the first time in a long time." I nodded. "Then I'm happy for you." And I meant it, even if it still stung. There was a silence between us, but it wasn't heavy. Just final. "I should go," she said. "I have a live stream in 30. I raised an eyebrow. "Of course you do." She smiled, and for just a split second, I saw a flicker of the woman I used to know. Then it was gone. "Take care of yourself," she said, turning the cart around. "You too," I replied. She walked away, down the aisle, into the crowd, into her new life. And I stood there, holding a frozen pizza and a bag of mixed greens, wondering how two people who once knew each other so deeply could now feel like strangers on a random Sunday afternoon. I've spent a lot of nights lying awake, trying to make sense of it all. Not just the shock, or the betrayal, or the loneliness, but the why. Why she changed. Why she left. Why she became someone I didn't recognize. And maybe more importantly, why I never saw it coming. It's easy to paint her as the villain. She blindsided me. She left, started selling photos online, made 10 grand in a month, and never looked back. That version of the story gets people fired up. It's clean. It's dramatic. It's simple, but real life isn't simple. She wasn't evil. She didn't cheat. She didn't lie, at least not in the traditional sense. What she did was transform. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being a part of her story. That's the part that's hardest to accept. We live in a culture now where reinvention is not only accepted, it's celebrated. Especially for women. Glow up. Main character energy. Soft life era. These phrases flood TikTok, Instagram, and every podcast playlist out there. And don't get me wrong, there's power in that. People should be able to evolve, take back control of their narrative, and break out of boxes that no longer fit. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one talks about. When someone reinvents themselves, someone else is often left behind. In my case, that someone was me. She didn't just change her hair or her job. She changed her entire identity, her beliefs, her values, her comfort zone. And in doing that, she shed me like an old coat. Quietly, cleanly, no dramatic breakup. Just a quiet exit followed by a full-blown transformation online. It made me ask myself, what does commitment even mean anymore? In our parents' generation, marriage was considered unbreakable. Ride or die. Even when it got hard, you stayed. You worked it out. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. But you stayed. Now, it feels like relationships are conditional. I'll love you as long as you support my growth. I'll stay as long as I feel free. The second someone feels restricted, they're out. And don't get me wrong, no one should feel trapped in a relationship. But there's a difference between feeling caged and refusing to compromise. Marriage requires sacrifice, not the kind where you lose yourself, but the kind where you share yourself, where two people grow together, not apart. And when that stops happening, when one person starts growing and the other is just standing still, something breaks. Quietly, invisibly, until the drift becomes permanent. OnlyFans was never the real issue. If she had sat me down and said, hey, I want to explore this side of me. I want to feel desired, empowered, free. We could have had that conversation. Maybe I wouldn't have been thrilled. Maybe I wouldn't have understood at first. But I would have listened. Instead, she made the decision alone. And that told me everything I needed to know. She didn't see me as part of her next chapter. That's the part no one warns you about when you fall in love. That the person who once chose you every day can one day wake up and decide they don't need you anymore. Not because you hurt them, not because you failed, but because you no longer fit the version of themselves they want to become. So where does that leave someone like me? For a while, I was angry. I felt disposable, like a stepping stone. She used our marriage as a launching pad and then soared into this new life where she didn't even glance back. I scrolled through comments from strangers throwing money at her, calling her perfect, while I sat alone, eating frozen dinners and wondering what the hell just happened. But over time, the anger faded. What replaced it wasn't peace, exactly, but perspective. She did what she needed to do to feel whole. And maybe I need to do the same. Because I won't lie, her success made me feel small. Like I was the boring, predictable guy she had to escape. The safe harbor she abandoned to chase open waters. But you know what? There's strength in stability. There's dignity in being the guy who shows up, who cooks dinner, who remembers birthdays, who doesn't leave when things get hard. I may not be flashy. I may not have a viral fan base or a growing platform, but I was real, and I was steady, and that still matters. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt left behind by someone else's transformation, just know you're not alone. It's okay to feel betrayed. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel like the ground shifted beneath you while the other person soared. But don't let that make you bitter. Let it make you better. Ask yourself, who am I becoming? What parts of me need rebuilding? Not in reaction to them, but for me. Because reinvention isn't just for people who leave. It's also for those of us who stay, who survive, who start over. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Just because someone changes without you doesn't mean you're stuck where they left you. You get to grow too, in your own way, in your own time. Before you go, if you found this story wild, and trust me, there are so many more like it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss one of these daily deep dives into the most dramatic, jaw-dropping stories people are posting on Reddit. Every day, I share real stories, real emotions, real chaos. So if you love relationship drama, tough life choices, and raw personal journeys, you're in the right place. Now I want to hear from you. If your partner secretly built a new life behind your back, even if that life made them happy, Would you still feel betrayed? Or would you respect their journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading every single one.